The No Nonsense Roundtable, a weekly radio show and podcast where host Dom Genova interviews guests from all walks of life, all with amazing stories to tell. And now, here's your host, Dom Genova.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of your No Nonsense Roundtable. I'm Dom Genova, your host every Saturday right here on WYSL WLEA, commercial free so we can have more time to spend with our guests and they can have more time spending time with us, and then you don't have to hear, well, like ED ads and stuff like that. So it's just my pleasure to be able to interview some people that you know and some people that you don't know and you should know. And what I like to tell people ahead of time is where we're going with this. And I have somebody on the show today that you probably don't know, but you should know. And his name is Steve Cataldi. And Steve and I met because I have this site, this Facebook group. It's a private group, and you could join if you want. It's Rochester Music Mafia. Is a Facebook group, and it's sort of like the Bills Mafia, but it's well for music. It's right there in the title. It's for music, and it's for everybody here in Rochester. Kind of get together. If you have a group, advertising your group. If you want to buy tickets, buy tickets. If you have an opinion, a survey, or whatever, it is just for like regular working people that are involved in the music business. You know, a lot of people that may never get to be in the Rochester Music Hall of Fame, you know, but there's a wonderful culture here of music and music performance. And Steve's going to talk about that in a little bit. But Steve went on my site and he talked about bluegrass music. And I love bluegrass music. Now, I spent like 8 or 9 years down south. So bluegrass and country music was just in the culture, and I got very, very friendly with some people that we would go. Nina and I would go listen to country and bluegrass, especially when you get to like Asheville. Asheville has a real great history of bluegrass music, and Steve and I started talking about his group and what he does, and then got into talking about the culture of music in Rochester, all told. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Steve, but I'm gonna ask him the same stupid question I ask everybody. When you were 10 years old, what did you want to do there, buddy? Was it music or something else?
Well, when I was 10 years old, Dom, I wanted to play for the New York Ranger hockey team. The way they're playing this year, I could probably make the team.
Uh,
But life has different plans, thank goodness, right?
yeah. So how did you get interested in music? What was the genesis of that?
Uh, Most families, I think everybody listening, families love music. In my
Hmm.
case, my dad, who's been gone 41 years now, just loved music and played the accordion. Both sides of the family are Italian, so we had a lot of that going on. God bless Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and all that stuff.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
Truth is, my older brother started playing some stuff, and we'd get around a campfire on a fishing trip. And next thing you know, there's kind of too many guitars around a campfire. So I saw a little mandolin once, and I said, "Well, that's different." And I'm a little brother; I need all the attention I can get. So let me try something different. Um, that band with both my older brothers and a bunch of dear friends to this day played for probably 40, 45 years. Called ourselves Gone Fishing because we played around the campfires in the Adirondacks for
Yeah.
all those years. They picked me up at Clarkson when I was doing my engineering school back in the mid 19 somethings, and we really played all over Monroe and Wayne County. But it's bluegrass, so we didn't play a lot, but we had a lot of
Oh,
fun.
yeah.
It was our fraternity, and families are still close.
Well, you know, I say all the time, and I'm glad we're doing this on Zoom now because you can see the light in somebody's eyes. I mean, when I was doing this remotely or by telephone or whatever, you can't see the light in somebody's eyes. This is part of you. I can see this in your eyes and your smile. This is great. So, what is the first instrument you took up?
So I taught myself guitar, learning my hero
Ooh.
John Denver stuff back in the 70s. Back to the bluegrass story, I realized I wanted to do something a little different, little more unique. I mean, even my shirt, you can't see it, but it says, "In a world full of guitars, be the mandolin." And so it's kind of been my calling card. I'm
Yeah.
by no means any expert at it, but I also do a lot of or have done a lot of improv
Hmm.
in the past, so it gives me a lot of flexibility to move around with different genres and have a lot of fun and create.
So how many guitars do you have?
Well, that's a tough question. I only have a couple of guitars that are mine, but I've purchased about 90.
Yeah, well,
Um,
you purchase and trade them and whatever, or do you have them
no,
out locked away someplace?
I actually invented, I'll use that word somewhat generously, a process. I call it acoustic light art, where I get old guitars and I modify them, put LED lights in them, and I can put any artwork on the front of this art guitar. It's not
Hmm.
playable. And I've probably done about 80 or 85 of those, donated a bunch to everything from Chris Wilson's One Hallelujah to Wounded
Mm.
Warriors to Breast Cancer Coalition and other music type things. And a lot of them I sell. People want Buffalo Bills on it or something that their kid has a
Hmm.
favorite cartoon character or whatever. So that's kind of my side hobby. So that's why I've purchased so many guitars. They're not high end ones, but they're hanging on people's walls and people are enjoying them.
Do you have a website for this?
I used to have a Facebook site, but it was hacked, and there's nobody in Facebook
Oh,
to let
yeah, that
me
happened.
recreate it. So I don't, other than contacting me or my Facebook page. It's all word of mouth. I maybe do,
Mhm.
8 to 10 a year. It's I don't want it to be work. We're done with the work side, Dom. We're retired now, so we're
So, 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 so your career path. Let's go a little bit at how you got to where you are now. I mean, because you haven't supported yourself all your life as a musician. So let's go through that.
no, very few fortunate people and very, very talented people in Rochester can support themselves with music.
Yes, I know. A lot of
Interesting.
competition too.
Yes, yes. It's a whole different passion, aspiration, and talent level, of which both my sons, who are part of my inspiration, have.
Oh,
One's a
good.
company manager at the JCC, and he sings and works in theater and
Hmm.
everything that the JCC does. He was in a recent piano uh, at high school while playing varsity hockey, of which I was lucky enough to coach, and I played on that same team in the 70s. He ended up going to Eastman School of Music's community program, and he won the New York State Piano Championship back at
Oh,
18.
oh,
And then
wonderful.
and then the southern version for the college level, and he ended up with his doctorate, and now he's been a professor down in Radford, Virginia, running
Oh,
a
God
piano
bless him.
program for years. So they're making a living at music. I'm doing it for a hobby. I try to convince them get a real job, but they both have succeeded well, and they told Dad, nah,
Well,
we're doing what we want to do, and God bless them.
Well, we talk about that all the time. I think people get tired of me saying this, but there's some people that you don't want to discourage your child from being a big league ball player. But then again, they have to have plan B, because not all of them make it. When they don't make it, that's a problem. $150,000 worth of debt. They can't support themselves. So no, God bless them for doing that. I really do think I'm a little bit of a man of faith, and I think God gives you a gift. I think there's something there that you don't know how the universe aligned that you have this talent or this eye for something. And the other thing is that I find that people in the music business, generally speaking, you're in it for the joy of doing it, and you make other people happy, and you have this particular space that you live in, like bluegrass or whatever. And the thing about music too is that I want to teach people it's not a zero sum game. You don't need to. If you go to this concert tonight about Paul Simon, and the next one is pick a guy, James Taylor. I mean, this one's not competing with the other. I mean, at that particular evening, you have a choice between two, but you don't have to do one or the other, and get yourself immersed in some of this stuff because you don't know what you like. Now, Jim Shelley, a good friend of mine, has this little venue down in Lima, New York. Fanatics Pub holds about 100 people. and he's always having something different there. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's rock, sometimes it's country, and there's so much of that in Rochester. So why don't you go a little bit into that about Rochester and how how famous we are? I didn't know until you sent me that article that we were ranked, what is it, third or fourth in the United States?
Number four.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's go over that. That's great stuff.
Yeah. So my newer band and the last like coming up on our third anniversary is called Hot Wire, and it tends to be different from the Gone Fishing original band I
Mhm,
played with family. This is more of a, we call it a Billy String style band. It's
mhm.
jazzy and rock and a lot more energy on it. We were playing down at I think it's Birdhouse Brewery, and somebody came up and said, "Wow, you guys are good," and it's really hard because there's Rochester's they thought number one number of musicians per capita in the USA, and I said, well, there's no way that can be the truth. If you Google it, and a lot of you I hopefully will, you'll see everything from we're not in the top 20 to we're in the top 20 to we're in the top 10. I keyed on, I think it was a Vivid Seats article
Mhm.
that said and it listed the top 10 cities in the US for number of musicians per capita, and we were shown as number four.
Yeah,
Without arguing the number, the truth is we got a lot of musicians in Rochester, and it's wonderful. A lot of it's Eastman School, of course, and everything around it. But if you're in a band, it's kind of easy to find people.
yeah.
If you're trying to get a gig, it's very difficult to get a
There's a lot of
gig.
competition. I know. Yeah,
The old supply and demand equation definitely comes into
yeah,
play. But yeah, I thought that was really quite the interesting article. From my vantage point, it seems like most of the musicians and bands tend to be older people, who lived
yeah,
through the great music of
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
60s, 70s, 80s. I
yeah,
know that's not really true, but I think that adds to it because you see a lot of folks, not just the Rolling Stones guys,
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
are
yeah,
70s and 80s and still playing music, and it doesn't
yeah.
sound any different than it did when they were, in their 20s and 30s. It's a beautiful thing. And to your point about you know, uh being a person of faith, yeah, you're open-minded enough to follow your dreams and see where it goes and flex with it. And I think that's kind of where and how I've gotten where I am.
Well, I only came across one person who somebody asked me how I like the particular show for this group, and it was a multi group presentation, and I said, well, I said the microphones didn't work. That he goes, yeah, but how was the show? Well, the microphones have to work. Well, didn't you like the show? No, the microphones didn't work. So there's this whole thing and one of my best friends, and I say this all the time, was Chuck Bricato, and Chuck was like, I don't care if I sing in front of two people or 20,000 people. I'm just trying to make somebody happy. That's what I'm there for. And it was even Wheeze that said that to me. I've gotten along really well with Wheeze. Wheeze said that the people that are listening to Lonsberry, he's number one to them. He says, whoever's listening to your show, Dom, you're number one to them. And I think that's a lot to be said for that. But the other thing is about my group. There are a lot of musicians and musical groups in Rochester that people aren't aware of. And there's a lot of different venues other than the big venues, the Kodak, the Kodak Center or the Kodak Hall at the Eastman or West Tar. There's these little venues that maybe don't hold all that many people, but you can get some really good. Well, I think it was what the Holiday Inn in Victor. Jimmy Highsmith is playing on a Friday afternoon. I mean, it's like 16 people there. And Jimmy's a great sax guy. My God.
You see a lot of that, and tying it back to hockey. Wayne Gretzky's dad always told him, you've got a special talent, a gift from God. When you're out there playing hockey, you give it your best because there could be just one kid that's going to be inspired by you, and it's the same thing you just
Yeah.
said about music. Whether the crowd is two people or 100, I will say when you play in front of 100 people, it's a high.
Yeah.
It's tough to get
Yeah.
rid of.
Yeah. I can imagine that. The The only I'll tell you the only thing that can kind of, in my personal opinion, is that I don't want to go someplace where I have to wear earplugs to hear the music. You know, sometimes when you got the smaller venues, it's they're turning the amps up. I don't know if you musicians are losing your hearing and you can't hear yourself, but if it's like okay, fine. That's why I gravitate a little bit more toward it's stuff like the bluegrass and country and western and smooth jazz. On my show, I had Bobby Rush. Bobby Rush is just he's just 83 years old, 3 Grammys, and he's a little naughty in his presentation. Oh, and I know I
Well,
said
that's
it,
me.
I said it on the show before too. He goes he works the crowd too. Okay, so some of this, of course, is your performance, but sort of a little bit is your personality. So he goes into the audience and he said to me, we had lunch one day. He says, I find the guy in the audience that I think hates me. He goes, and I go up to him and I kind of schmooze him and whatever because I get him on my side. He says, and once I do that, he says, I can feel
You
comfortable
got the
with
room.
the room. Yeah.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, and it's musicians like everybody else. We're people too, even though even us part-time retired
Yeah,
real
yeah.
engineers, that do music. But yeah, all kinds of personalities and thing, and it's wonderful. It also makes I'll use the word diversity, not in
Yeah.
a not in a in a way to show that you've got to have different viewpoints, and or you're not going to be creative. When our Gone Fishing family band kind of aged out, and we wanted to go different directions, I still wanted to play, especially now that I was about to retire at the time, and wanted to spend all that time, doing something different.
Hmm.
So I fell in love with the Newgrass Revival and Bella Fleck and Sam Bush and those rockin' jazz and bluegrass guys. Billy Strings came along and kind of took the baton from them, says, I want to start a band that's doing that kind of stuff. And there really wasn't anybody in Rochester doing that. Starting a band is not easy, especially in a
Mm.
genre like bluegrass where there's not a lot of players, not necessarily a lot of respect or openness from venues to play bluegrass.
Yeah.
It's got an interesting reputation, if you will. But this is not your father's bluegrass. But I've got a guy that plays for the Penfield Philharmonic.
Hmm.
Wonderful. He's the stable of the band. I've got a fiddler that's played all over regionally. He just came back from a gig in Panama with Big Eyed Fish. Before he moved on from there. A country and a rock guy. And I've got a young kid that's just a phenomenal guitar player from all over, jazz, rock,
Mm.
bluegrass, and here I am coming from, Dean Martin's my guy, right? But being able to put all
Yeah.
that stuff together,
Yeah.
I think it shows with the audience,
Yeah.
and but it's not easy doing it. You got to learn to grow as a family.
Oh, yeah. And you're always on. They said, some management books I read years ago. They talk about like Johnny Carson. He wasn't always happy. How many divorces did he have? And he had a drinking problem, whatever. But he put on the act. He had to do that no matter what. So
He was
when you're on, you're on. No matter how well you feel, or if you feel like doing it or not, you get paid to do a job, and that's the respect I would say the great majority of musicians have.
You
They
have to
they
be you have to
yeah,
be part actor.
yeah,
You really do. I mean, all of
yeah.
us in our daily lives have to do that anyways,
Hmm.
within reason. But yeah, I did improv and I did Joey and Maria's shows for 15 years
Hmm.
around Rochester and New York State, and it's all improv and acting, and it gave me some
Oh,
great
yeah,
characteristics and
yeah,
helped me get that ESL commercial that the paparazzi chases me out all the time.
yeah.
Um, but starting a band is a whole different element. I was spoiled because we came from a family band.
Oh,
Everybody
yeah,
knew
yeah,
each other. Our spouses, we did everything together.
yeah.
That was just a natural way to do it. So I find out that no, people do music. It's for the business side, and I like you today. I don't like you tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you're out of the band. You're off the island. And I try to infuse that into Jerry Falzone and Liar's Moon, which I
Oh, yeah.
played with for 6 years, and how he wanted a uh, mandolin player in his rock band. I don't know, but God bless him because he's inspired me and he's been
Yeah.
musical coach and mentor. And we're still doing some gigs. We've got our big
Yeah.
CSNY sellout show coming up again in June.
Yeah.
When you don't have that kind of built-in inherent family relationship, you got to work it, and it's
Yeah.
persistence and patience. And
Yeah.
I love where Hot Wire's coming. If you don't have a
Yeah.
band yet and you're looking to start it, it like everything else you hear, it's about relationships,
Yeah.
and building that and accepting and adapting. And I think I've had the most to adapt to because the guys I've got in this band are just absolutely wonderful people. And um, and now we're going through in our third year anniversary, we're watching each other go through different issues and health concerns
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And that's what, like anything else in life, it's what draws people together and builds you up. And it shows, I believe it shows in how you play and perform because
Yeah.
we're up there having fun and people see.
Well, I'm a real big advocate of music for kids too, because I mean, if they get involved in a band, first of all, you can't be on your iPhone and practicing at the same time. You have to relate with other people because it's an orchestra or it's a band, and you're not playing the whole melody. I mean, somebody else is playing with you and whatever, and you're together and you're meeting and you're learning some discipline. One of the things that my wife told me because she's involved with RIT, she goes, a lot of the STEM students are musicians. There's something about mathematics and science that's compelling them to take music too. I thought that was an awfully interesting observation.
It's very true, and they'll always say that math is going to help you
Hmm.
um, and that's very true. When you think about a band, you're a team.
Yeah,
It's you don't really call it that. We don't think about it that way, but absolutely, again, to quote that silly commercial, the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts,
yeah,
and um, and that's very key. You have to have all the things though. You've got to be a good product, whether you're looking for a job or a
yes,
band or whatever, but you also have to let people know that because you can be the best product. Like you said, there's some venues out there that people don't know about, but they're
yeah.
great. Got to
Yeah,
market them.
and that's what I want to do with my website or my Facebook posts. So it is put a spotlight on some of these things because I mean, in all honesty, I wasn't aware. I mean, I wasn't aware of these things until just recently, and it's like, oh my Lord, And upstate New York is like that. I don't know what it is, but you see some you see a restaurant, and the restaurant looks like it's a rundown restaurant. Nobody's going there because it was built 100 years ago, and the outside is, and then you get inside, and you're like, wow, this is really cool. Actually, Rochester, all told, is like that. You look at
Yeah.
Rochester, you go, it's Rochester, and then you get here, it's like, oh, this is pretty nice. You know,
Yeah,
it's not obvious. And us marketing guys, that's what we're looking for. Us marketing guys are looking for the place that has a really good dish of food, but they need more people to come in to taste the food. And that's why I get the joy out of this show sometimes, is that you find something that is really kind of cool and nobody knows about it. You make people know
there
about
you
it.
go.
They enjoy it.
Exactly.
That's my contribution to the world. So,
Well, and the other thing happens
you
too.
know,
You've seen some beautiful buildings. We've seen one built
yeah,
out here on between Webster and Ontario.
yeah,
Just a beautiful restaurant building, and you go
yeah,
there, and it's
yeah,
not good food at all. And they didn't
yeah.
last. You have to have the product, and
Wow.
you have to be
Yeah.
the good market.
Well, in this discussion I had with this fellow back when, we're talking about the show, and I said, it's like I had the car dealership for 26 years, for God's sakes. I said, no matter how well I fix your transmission or your engine, I can't leave grease on the seats. Okay, I mean the guy, oh, you got it fixed. Well, the grease you got on your pants, that's minor, and no, no, it has to be consistent. And the other thing is that it's got to be consistent and entertaining so much that you'd want to come back again. And that's the thing. The
And,
consistency of it, You
and,
can't
and in a
you can't
band,
yeah. I'm sorry.
in a band, it's a beautiful thing when people follow your Facebook page.
Yes.
We're up to
Yeah.
almost 12,000 hits on our
Hmm.
hotwireband.com website.
Yeah.
And that stuff shows that what the band is doing as a whole is working. The music selection we're
Yes.
doing is working. The talent and how it's coming together is working.
Yes.
We're definitely not a top tier band in Rochester, but to go from something, nothing to something in a few years,
Yes.
it shows that all the stuff you're talking
Yes.
about, being
No,
that good product,
you're,
it's
yeah.
impressive. It's fun.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, marketing wise, I would talk. I call that an orchard. Okay, so you plant a tree, and it gives you apples the next year, and then the apples give you more apples, give you more apples, give you more apples. So when I had the dealership, it was people came in back in '94, and then their kids are coming in, and then the grandkids start coming in after 26 years. The grandkids are coming in because you took care of the orchard.
Right.
You didn't cut down the trees and sell firewood. You had an orchard.
And
And
what's
that's
the other thing you needed? You needed patience and persistence, right?
yes, that's exactly right. And the humility to go, maybe I could be making a little bit more, but it's better to have a consistency and loyalty than it is to make money in the short term. So I mean,
And,
that's just
and
that.
you
That's
got to
just
feel,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And so we're talking about since we're talking about money, let's do a little retail here. Where are you playing next, and how do we get in touch with you and all this other stuff?
Well, thank you. Our next gig is April 25th at the Lovin' Cup. One beautiful thing again about music and the community in Rochester is, especially if you're a new band, collaborate. And I learned that from
Mhm.
Jerry Falzone. Collaborate, get a couple of bands together. So, got a great friend and a wonderful musician throughout Rochester for many years, Gordon Munding, and his
Oh
sleight of
yes,
and his
yes.
sleight of hand band. And I'm very, very good friends with Lee Kaminsky, his guitar player. And so we saddled up together, and I said, "Listen, why don't we do a joint gig?" So April 25th is going to be a really cool gig, and I'm calling it. It's kind of roots, blues, and bluegrass. So Gordon and
Ah,
his group are going to play, their roots blues, and we're gonna join them for a couple of songs, and then we're gonna come and do our Billy String style bluegrass, and then we'll bring Gordon back up afterwards. So that collaboration. Gordon's fans, who are huge and many and powerful
yeah.
and very passionate, will get to hear Hotwire. And Hotwire fans who are growing and multiplying like rabbits, they'll get to hear Gordon. And doing more of that in this community is a wonderful thing. We see a lot of that from the old Bluegrass Festival days.
Yeah.
People come in and camp out like they used to do out at Brantling and Sodus, and there'd be, 20 or 30 different bluegrass bands playing throughout the weekend, for every hour or two. And everybody would get to know,
Mhm.
respect, learn about the other bands and just build up a wonderful portfolio of music. So we're doing that. And then we're blessed to be able to one of the early bands come May 15th, I think it is, playing at the new Intune Supper Club, which is really
Hmm.
a cool thing. If folks haven't heard about that, it's the old Biaggi's restaurant in Victor, right,
Oh, okay,
right
right there
behind
at the
PFJ,
mall, right?
right there at the mall. And it's you pay one price and you get dinner and a show.
Oh, that sounds really
Yeah,
cool.
I believe they had a soft opening of a month ago or so, and I think
Hmm.
the grand opening was maybe a week or two ago. Most of their talent agent is built out of Syracuse. Talked to a
Hmm.
wonderful gentleman there who's brought us on board. He's got some interesting uh, anecdotes about Rochester. He goes, "Your bands don't." You don't get paid enough. He goes, it's amazing between
This-
Syracuse and Rochester how
Yeah,
there's so many Rochester
yeah,
bands, full
yeah,
circle in the discussion
yeah,
here to that you guys undercut each other. We've
yeah,
done this. We've done this
yeah,
with a rock band that's absolutely packed the record archive to the
yeah,
point where the curtains are closed and the rest of the people are watching from the retail
yeah.
shop to playing at a local distillery, and we walk out of the local distillery with $20 each after a 6 or 7 hour investment. So there's a balance there that everybody in a band, new bands especially, need to recognize you between I do it
Yes,
because I love music versus
but then
what's my
again,
value, and I kind of have my own number. If it's under a certain amount as a person, it's like I love music and I want to do this, but I feel cheated. So
well,
it's an interesting discussion among musicians, and again, other than the top tier who's able to demand rightfully so, a whole different model.
And you should do this for free, but look at the exposure you get. How many times do you get that, right?
Exactly.
I'll tell you a car story because I just remembered it now. I had one woman who sends me a note and says, "Listen, I'm going to make a history of the state of New York, and I'd like to do this during the summer. I'd like you to provide a car for me." I go, "Okay." I says, "What do I get out of this?" She goes, "Well, you get to put your sign on the side of the car." And I go, okay, hold on a second. I get a chance to put my own sign on my side of my car and give it to you, and you're going to drive it all around the state. I said, you know, ma'am, I could do that with somebody local. They would actually buy a car for me. But look at the exposure you get. I don't think anybody in Schenectady is going to buy a car for me. Okay, that's
Well,
but
that
you
woman
get
should
the
have been a used
exposure.
car salesman.
You got the exposure though. So let's repeat that again. April, you said 16th?
April 25th,
25th. I'm sorry.
we're at the Lovin' Cup, and May 15th, we're at Intunes. And
Hmm.
if you go to
Hmm.
www.hotwireband.com, we've got our EPK and we've got our videos and our pictures and the rest of our schedule. For those of us that are busy, we're doing some traveling, and so for us, a couple of gigs a month is plenty for us, and we're unfortunately actually turning people down right now, which is
Oh,
frustrating because it's so
yeah,
hard to get to this point.
yeah,
We're not at that 26-year mark yet. We're, at the third year
yeah,
mark, which is better than the first year mark.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but again, the advice to new bands is be patient, be persistent.
yeah.
There's a balance mark between the venues that they know they've got a band
Hmm.
coming in that's going to bring a crowd. They don't know you. So there's going to be hesitation to bring anybody in that they don't know unless you have a
Hmm.
personal relationship with them. Like any job, it's about networking. I'm not very good at networking, so I try to market the heck out of it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's yeah, music is a microcosm of society in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Like I said, I know I'm repeating myself, but the culture here of Rochester and music is just extraordinary. And if you live any place else, it's not like this. I mean, this is really something special, and more people need to know about it, enjoy it, and it is a quality of life thing. I mean, here in Rochester, you get all the water you want. It's not like being out in California. There's no forest fires. There's no hurricanes. There's no tornadoes. I mean, you have a wonderful summer, which you appreciate more because the winters are so bad, and it's a great place to live. But this is just one of these unsung things that I see in Rochester. Being an outsider coming here, that was just a delight. And the thing is, again, marketing wise, when somebody comes and they buy your product and they didn't realize it had this benefit to it, well, then there wasn't enough marketing. I mean, if it like my next door neighbor, he says, "Well, I moved here from Texas. I didn't realize how nice this place was." Well, because we didn't do enough marketing. We need to tell more people. We need to advise more people and get them to realize what a great place it is. So
You're
thank you ever
you're
so much.
exactly right.
Yeah, thank you ever so much for coming on. I think this is like the end of Casablanca. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, and and we will see you on if nothing else on April 25th because that is just right up my alley, right up my alley.
It's a fun place, and uh, Eric and Leslie do a wonderful job over there.
God bless you for what you do, and thanks for coming on the show.
Dom, thank you.
Thanks for listening. You can find our previous shows at nononsenseroundtable.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll make more.